Hi there, today we're going to look at the editor, the design program from 2Dscanner. On the first screen, as soon as you open it, you see some instructions here, which explain how we move around inside the drawing and other things. Let's see it in action. We open a file. Let's first see how we move around. With middle click and drag, we move around inside the drawing. With left click and drag, we select an area that gets zoomed in. Double middle click does zoom all. Right click and drag, we select points. Escape, we deselect. This is if we want to delete them. We'll see that later. Actually, let's see it now too. As is, we press delete, enter, and the points are deleted. Control Z, and that's how we undo. At this point, let's highlight the big advantage of the editor. You see here that this line is broken. It's been cut. It has a point here and a point here. This could be a floor lamp. And the other point could be from an outlet with a plug plugged in. So in the editor, when we delete points, new lines are automatically created. Here you see the line has been cut. We delete this point and now I have a single continuous line. Now when I left click, I select a set. And when I have a set selected, the right click opens up this menu here that has various commands, which we'll also go through one by one later. And a plain middle click opens up this pop-up menu, also with various commands. Let's now look at what we see here. In the visibility field, here we select the elements we want to see. The raw values are the ones that don't have tilt correction applied. When the tool is leveled, they coincide with the corrected ones. It'll show a bit better here. Here they're almost identical. We always work with the corrected ones, so with the tilt correction. However, there are some special cases where we also need the raw ones. A special case, let's say, is if I'm on a ship and measuring on the ship. Points. The points are the blue circles that appear wherever we have a point. The signal strength is the quality information of the measurement. And here where we see large circles, it means we don't have a good measurement. I can easily filter out these measurements by enabling Ignore Low Signal. And I see right away that a lot of invalid measurements that were ruining my drawing are gone. 2D scanner position is, of course, the position of the tool in each scan. The notes and the stickers fall under the notes, as do the reference points. Media are the images we've attached to our drawing. When I move the mouse to an image, that image appears in full screen. And if I now press space here, it will open it with the program's default image viewer. So we usually keep them closed when we want to do work, because as we move the mouse, they sometimes get in the way. Trace lines. The lines are the red lines that the application generates. The midlines, which you use a lot, we can, if we want, hide them or show them. And max deviation. What is the max deviation? On every red line, there is a point that is furthest from that line. With max deviation, we can see which point that is. On this line now, let's say, here it tells me 41.6. Because here I have the trace line's max dist at 40. If I make it 15, the lines are much stricter and don't include distant points. If I set it back to 40, you see here that a line appeared. For this wavy outline here, which is probably a curtain, the default is 15. It had stayed at 40 because I had changed it for some reason. Automatic dimensions. These are the dimensions the program produces automatically. When I have 2 consecutive lines, it gives me the degrees. And when I have 3 consecutive, it also gives me the dimension between them. Like here, let's say 1, 2, 3 consecutive, It gives me a dimension on the middle one. Manual are the dimensions I can add with these tools here through the set of commands. That appears with a middle click. With this option, I can show them or not. And finally, the dimension scale is how large the dimensions will appear. It has nothing to do with the number of the dimension, that is. Now we'll look at these rotation tools here. We see -90 plus 90 rotates the whole drawing. But if I have a set selected, then it rotates only that set. Escape deselects. And now it rotates the whole drawing. Line to y-axis. With this tool, I can take any line I want and make it parallel to the y-axis and correspondingly to the x. This one was already aligned with the x. Let me do another line. And here we have the limits we mentioned earlier. Ignore low signal. Some points went away. That didn't have a good signal, and ignore long shots. Anything over 15 meters goes away. If I set it to 5 meters, see how these distant points here disappeared too. Here, of course, we have to be careful not to lose points that we actually need. In this list here, our scans appear. I can select them. With Shift held down, I select many at once. And with Control, I select them scattered. And with right-click here, this menu appears that has these tools here, which are for controlling which scans we see. There's Rename. We can change the names of the scans and the colors. The colors are an interesting feature. I can, if I want, change the color of any scan. Here we see the color of the points and here the color of the lines that the application generates with the least squares method. With this little button, I can automatically make unique colors for all the scans. Let's now look at the tools that are in these menus here. The File menu, Open TXT. It opens a file from the 2Dscanner. Import TXT. It brings another file into the existing project we have open. This is so I can combine individual scans if I have them, putting them all together into one drawing. Export visible to DXF. Whatever elements we see from these checkboxes here are also the ones that will be exported to the DXF. If I don't see the photos, let's say, I won't see them in the DXF either. Save project. It saves in a different format in the editor's format, which is the 2DS project. And in this file, let's point out that the photos are embedded inside. They don't follow afterwards as separate files. When I make it a DXF, then it will export them as photos too, so that AutoCAD can open them. Save project as. It saves with a different name, again as a 2DS project. And load project. It loads these files. Exit. We exit the program, of course. And here are the files we were working on recently. Tools, generate thumbnail images in a folder. With this little button, I can select any folder. But I must not have any drawing loaded first. That is, right when I open the editor, I have to use this tool. And then we select the folder, and it creates thumbnails for us from all the TXT files that are in there, so that we can easily find a drawing within a multitude of files. The colors are the thing we saw earlier, where we change the colors of the scans. Edit. We have undo. Hedo. Delete note. Surin. Income. Crop drawing. Crop visible. These three here we'll see in a moment through the pop-up menu. That opens with a middle click. Settings. Language. Units. Mouse sensitivity. Here there's something interesting. It's how sensitive the zoom will be on the wheel. It makes sense for a touchpad to make it a bit more relaxed if we want, so the zoom isn't so intense. DXF settings. Over here now we have the options for the exported DXF. For the detected lines and the scan points. To take a bi-block property for their color. This gives us the advantage that in AutoCAD, or in our design program in general, we'll be able to change the color of the block, and the color of the lines will change too, without needing to explode. This makes it somewhat easier to work when we have many scans and have to merge them. Do not export signal even if visible. Even if I have the signal set to visible here, it won't be exported to the DXF if this box here is checked. Most people don't need the signal in the DXF, so we can prevent it from here so it doesn't confuse us. Default units for DXF export. We can choose for the DXF to have different units than the ones we work with here inside the application. And export scan points as polylines. This is the default option. So if we have this box checked, all the points that belong to a line will be a polyline. But the orphan points that don't belong to a line will be orphan points in AutoCAD too. If I select points, all the points, even those that belong to a line and those that are orphans, will come out as points on their own, with no connection between them in a separate layer. And if I select both, I'll have two layers, the 2DSP lines, which will have the points in polylines, and the orphans as points. And it will also have another layer which will have all the points as orphans. Let's now look at the tools that appear with the middle click. I'll use this command first. Line to x-axis to align my drawing a bit, and now I'll use the command crop non-visible. This automatically cuts all the points that are off screen. And here some points that were scattered around, as you see, no longer exist. But there's also the command crop, which selects the good lines from the drawing and suggests an area to us that includes those lines. So these lines here that are small didn't pass the filters and were left out. Then I press space, as the instructions here tell me, and now all these points have been selected that were outside the area. And I press delete and enter, and now those points have been deleted too. This little one here was left. Right-click, we select it and delete it. And that's how I've cleaned up my drawing relatively easily. Let's now look at the rest of the tools. Here we have move, rotate, align, move perpendicular. We'll go through them one by one. Let's start with move. The move is simple. We click here. You see the instructions. With control and arrows, I can move it up, down, left, right by 1 millimeter. Or I can tell it take this point and bring it here. Rotate. We define the center of the rotation and a starting point and an ending point. So let's say I want this here. To be the center and to rotate so that this point comes here and the rotation is done. Align. Now let's say I want this point to come here and the move happens right away. And this point to align with this one and the rotation happens too. It's 2 in 1, that is, move perpendicular. This is an interesting tool when you have separate rooms scanned to create the walls. And to see it better, I'll first do an align. Let's say that these here were scanned one next to the other, and we wanted to create the wall here. We select the perpendicular move. We select the line as a reference base. This line will be used and will determine my movement. And now I move perpendicular and parallel. So if I want to say that the wall is 15 centimeters, I put in this number, and from here I can move it right and left to align it exactly. And here, of course, we can adjust the step of these movements too. Over here are the commands that are also in the file menu. We won't go through them again. Here's the zoom that's done with a double click. Undo, redo, and these crops we saw. So we're left with these lines here. Let's also see a delete note. Things are simple. You press the tool and then delete whatever notes you want to delete. And dimensions, first of all, we have point distance. When I do this, it shows me delta x, delta y, and distance. Horizontal dimension. Vertical dimension. I don't need to dwell on this in much detail. Of course, these are shown and hidden from here. Diagonal dimension. And to delete these dimensions if I want. And degrees. I can select two lines and see their degrees. This is the editor. A fairly lightweight program, it updates automatically. And you can download it from our page from the downloads. It's now available on Mac too. Thanks for watching the video.